Industry Minister Melanie Joly appeared in front of a parliamentary committee today where she broke the news that the federal government is beginning a dispute resolution process with Stellantis, the automaker that is now kind of famously known in Canada for its decision to move some Jeep production.
You know, we're learning about job losses at Amazon. It feels like almost every day we're hearing about yet another tech company conducting these mass.
A quiet unease is moving through corporate America, carried not by headlines, but by the steady rhythm of layoffs and restructuring. In boardrooms and video calls, longtime employees are being told their roles no longer exist, even as profits rise and markets stay steady. Amazon has wiped out thousands of management positions. UPS has trimmed nearly 50,000 jobs. Target and Charter Communications have done the same, each move framed as efficiency, each announcement sounding eerily familiar. Nearly 1 million workers have been cut in under a year, the steepest pullback since the pandemic. Yet, behind the numbers, something larger seems to be shifting, a recalibration of how work, value, and human labor fit into the new economy. Is this the birth of a smarter corporate model, or the unraveling of the one that once defined American ambition? The wave of layoffs making headlines isn't random or reactionary. It's the visible sign of an economy stretched to its limits. For years, the system ran on predictable mechanics: cheap imports, low interest rates, and a labor force that fueled both innovation and spending. That cycle no longer holds. Inflation, trade barriers, and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence have shifted the ground beneath the market. What once was a playbook of steady expansion has turned into a game of survival, where endurance matters more than growth. President Trump's renewed tariffs on metals, electronics, and everyday goods have raised the cost of nearly every component that moves through supply chains. The policy aims to restore American manufacturing strength, but the ripple effects have landed unevenly. UPS reported a 27% plunge in shipments from China to the United States, cutting deeply into its revenue base. Carter's, the children's apparel company, trimmed 15% of its office workforce after import costs spiked. Even Amazon, a company built on scale and precision, admitted that artificial intelligence is reshaping its operations in ways that require massive internal restructuring. Across the board, the formula has narrowed: shrink to remain profitable, automate to stay competitive. Each attempt to safeguard profits tightens the strain on workers. Efficiency becomes the benchmark, but efficiency also eliminates the very people who create it. The economic fabric is thinning, not from negligence, but from necessity. Global trade routes have become unpredictable. Political pressure mounts on every transaction, and consumers behave in ways that defy forecasts. The result is a cycle that feeds itself. Every adjustment designed to restore balance ends up eroding stability even further. Behind the polished corporate statements about restructuring and optimization lies a more personal story. Families wake to find their livelihoods gone overnight. Communities that depended on a single employer are left with empty warehouses and dwindling hope. In October alone, over Hyeonmin Os, 25,000 layoffs were announced across industries, adding to the hundreds of thousands already recorded this year. Long-term unemployment now hovers near 2 million. Economists warn that the damage isn't limited to financial figures, it's psychological. When layoffs become routine, people lose faith in the system itself. And when confidence falters, spending slows, creating the kind of self-reinforcing downturn that no data model can easily predict. The slowdown hits hardest in the middle. The American middle class, long considered the engine of growth, is pulling back. Spending that once kept factories humming and retailers expanding has turned cautious. Every reduction in consumption ripples outward. Production dips, tax revenues fall, and local businesses struggle to stay open. What was once a culture of stability is turning into a culture of self-protection. Corporate strategy now revolves around survival. Cut quickly, recover later. While the United States doubles down on protectionist trade policies, a new narrative is emerging farther north. Canada, often seen as the quieter economic partner, is seizing a rare opportunity. As American companies face rising costs and political uncertainty, Ottawa has begun positioning the country as a haven for predictability. Through targeted tax breaks, production incentives, and promises of long-term stability, the Canadian government is inviting the same industries that Washington's tariffs are pushing away. This approach is paying off. Honda has pledged nearly $11 billion to build an electric vehicle and battery network in Ontario, backed by an additional $5 billion in federal and provincial support. The project will create thousands of jobs and anchor a new hub for EV manufacturing in North America. It's part of a wider pattern. Renewable energy firms, tech developers, and logistics companies are all gravitating toward Canada's steadier environment. In a global economy where volatility dominates, reliability has become a prized asset, and Canada is exporting it in abundance. Inside corporate boardrooms across the United States, the discussion is shifting. The focus is no longer limited to innovation or market share, it's about geography and strategy. Executives are asking whether they can still compete under the weight of trade barriers and fluctuating policies. With each tariff increase and each unpredictable policy shift, more capital begins to look north for relief. What began as temporary adjustments to a turbulent market is now reshaping the entire industrial landscape of the continent. For every new restriction coming from Washington, there's an incentive emerging from Ottawa. While the United States raises trade walls, Canada lowers entry barriers. Honda's billion-dollar investment in Ontario isn't only about electric vehicles. It's proof that consistent policy can reduce production costs by as much as 20% and create supply chains that function without disruption. Corporations under strain are learning that predictability often outweighs proximity. Quietly, dozens of American firms are recalibrating their operations. Some have shifted parts of their manufacturing to Canadian plants, others have moved logistics and support functions north while keeping their customer bases in the States. The idea is practical: stay within the North American market, but operate where the ground feels more stable. When one side of the border becomes uncertain, the other becomes a safety valve. This migration of capital and production is redefining what competitiveness means. Speed and low wages are no longer the sole advantages. Stability and policy consistency have become the new currency of success. Canada, long regarded as the supporting partner in the North American economic trio, is acting as the system's stabilizer, absorbing the shocks of U.S. turbulence and offering continuity when markets elsewhere fluctuate. Across the provinces, from Windsor's auto plants to Vancouver's technology corridors, the transformation is visible. Canada isn't positioning itself as a backup. It's building a leadership role. Investment is flowing into clean energy, electric transportation, and digital manufacturing. Ontario and Quebec have become the twin anchors of this industrial renewal, drawing billions in global capital. For every American facility downsized or closed, another facility seems to rise across the border, supported by a framework designed for long-term resilience. Ottawa's strategy is rooted in independence. Programs like Buy Canadian focus on strengthening local production chains and reducing reliance on foreign suppliers. Tens of thousands of new jobs have already emerged from this initiative. While Washington continues its tariff battles, Canada is securing long-term supply agreements that lock in stability for years ahead. Instead of confronting U.S. trade policy directly, it is quietly positioning itself as the reliable counterpart, the steady center in an era of economic turbulence. Yet, beneath this continental shift lies a deeper question, one that extends far beyond trade. What happens when the world's largest economy begins to treat layoffs as a measure of success? If profitability depends on cutting workers faster than replacing them, what remains of the social foundation that once defined American progress? Each efficiency report hides stories that never make it to quarterly summaries. Families losing homes, small businesses closing, towns fading into silence. The true cost of these transformations can't be measured in profit margins. It's reflected in the erosion of security, identity, and trust. For decades, efficiency was sold as the key to shared prosperity. Today, it's beginning to feel like a replacement for it. The more companies automate, the less room there is for the people who built those systems in the first place. The race to stay competitive has blurred into a struggle to stay relevant. Other governments are taking notice. Canada's approach may become a blueprint for future economies seeking balance between openness and protection. If it can maintain growth while absorbing American capital and labor talent, it could redefine resilience for a fragmented global market. But if the U.S. continues tightening its trade barriers and prioritizing short-term stability over long-term cohesion, other countries may follow that path, creating a world economy dominated by walls, tariffs, and uncertainty. For now, Canada appears to be winning the near-term race, attracting capital, creating jobs, and projecting steadiness while others wrestle with volatility. But even this balance has limits. As industries cross borders and economies reposition themselves, both nations are stepping into a future that feels more uncertain than ever. Carney, who assumed office earlier this year, accepted Xi's invitation to visit Beijing in the near future. Speaking afterward, he said the tone of the talks was encouraging and suggested that renewed dialogue could lead to real benefits for Canadian workers and businesses. His message was clear. Diplomacy grounded in results could create space to solve issues that have lingered for too long. Still, foreign policy experts urge caution. Veena Najibullah, Vice President of the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada, welcomed the change in tone but warned that it did not yet signal a full return to the deep strategic cooperation of earlier decades. She noted that while engagement matters, Canada must stay vigilant, especially as China shows growing interest in the Arctic and continues to assert influence across Asia. This does not mean China's behavior has shifted, she said, urging the government to balance openness with awareness. For Carney, the timing of this diplomatic thaw carries weight. North American trade is under pressure, and the U.S.-Canada Free Trade Agreement is nearing review. Speaking at a business forum earlier the same day, Carney acknowledged that the era of rules-based liberalized trade is over, outlining a plan to double Canada's non-U.S. exports within 10 years. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.